Hey, on this video I'm going to talk about security, how to keep your network safe, how to keep your NAS safe, how to identify what problems you might be having in your network, what insecurities. I'm going to be going through all those things a little bit, and here's my to-do list to talk about today. And so we're going to talk about ransomware. This is why this topic is hot, and that's why everyone wants to know, is NAS safe? Can we still use it? What's going on? How to keep these things safe, because there are so many attacks lately. So talking about ransomware, there are two main ways how these hackers will try to hack into your NAS or any other device you got on your home network. So there are two options. It's going to be zero-day attack or phishing attack. So zero-day attacks, that means that they will be looking for insecurities, some holes in the software. So every company, every software will always have some holes. It's not just Synology QNAP, it's also Mac and Tesla and other systems, and Windows especially, that they have insecurity discovered. Someone figured out something is not patched, the software is not made properly. So before they will create a patch, you have this small window of a day, maybe 2 days, maybe a week, until they will fix it. So hackers will be using this opportunity to hack into the systems, and that's called zero-day attack. Other option would be phishing attack, which means that you are actually allowing hackers to hack into your system. This is when you're receiving some emails and you're clicking on attachments, opening some files, downloading some files, clicking on links, going to places, trying to log into your systems without encrypted connection, so people can see, hackers could see what passwords you're typing and what usernames. So these are the two main ways how hackers will try to attack you. So we're going to more focus on zero-day attacks rather than phishing maybe. So let's go through the things what you can do to secure your NAS and your home network and other devices at your home. So the first thing you will need to do is secure your router, because this is your first defense before hackers can get into your home network and see all devices. So if you haven't secured your router, they will just log into your home network if you have like guest Wi-Fi enabled, or if you have really simple Wi-Fi with a password that everyone could guess. Once they are into your home network in your Wi-Fi, if it's locally targeted sort of situation, they'll be seeing all your devices in your network, and then they can just run attacks and get into your NAS. So how do you secure your router? We're going to talk about that. And the second thing will be, you can create separate networks for trusted devices. It means you keep your important stuff on separate networks, like your phones, your laptops, and your NAS inside your home. You can actually create separate networks, so you keep them separate and keep things like smart devices, your Google Homes and Alexas and all that stuff on a separate network. And if you can go one step further, then all IoT devices, all those dodgy light bulbs and plugs and stuff like that are coming from China, you don't know who can connect to those things. So I will keep those things on a separate network as well. So you would have a 3-tier system to keep things safe. And this next thing would be configuring your NAS. So that will be a situation when the damage has done. The hackers have gone into your home network and they can see your NAS. So what can you do to not let them into your NAS? So even though they have broken into your home network, you can still make sure that they are not getting in your NAS. And the last thing will be how to keep things updated, how to enable automatic updates and firmware things, just in case someone would try to use a zero-day attack. So that would be important. So let's just move on. So first, how to secure your router, how to actually identify what problems you might have in your home network is scanning for open ports. Because by default, when you're receiving your router from your internet service provider, either BT, TalkTalk, Sky, or Virgin, or whatever internet provider you have, they all have different routers, but the logic is the same most of the time, unless you go for private internet cable provider where there are not much of security involved by default. So by default, you will receive your router with all ports blocked. So there are no holes, there's no shortcuts through your network. It's just everything is just blocked. There's a wall. So no one can come connect into your network and talk to your devices directly from outside world. But it's always allowed to reach out from inside your network to outside world. So once you have done a handshake and said, yeah, I want to talk to this server or that location, from that point on you have created this connection so that you can send things out and in. So this is where vulnerability can come into place. So first thing, you need to make sure all your ports are closed on your router. Because if you have QNAP NAS especially, or maybe ASIS2 as well, when they come with their easy wizards where you just click, yeah, automate all things, just enable everything so I can have this NAS as a multimedia server. It's so complicated, just click yes and I'm gonna connect to all your router and punch all those holes in your NAS, so you don't need to think about how to make this service work. So this is usually the first mistake people make when they allow systems to open some random ports on behalf of you. So this is where damage can be done. So if you want to identify what ports you have open, because you might have already NAS for some time and you don't know what's going on, how secure your router is, even this first vault, this first defense, what I could recommend is going and getting your ports scanned either on a network, internet website, something called PentestTools.com. You can do that. So you can click scan your network and type your IP into this thing. So how to get your external IP is just go to Google and search my IP and hit enter. So you'll see the IP you can test. This is your public IP, and if you put your public IP in here, you'll be able to run a test and see what's going on, what ports are open. So in my case, everything is closed up, so no ports have been found. This is really light scan. This is not advanced scan. You need to pay for advanced scan, which I would recommend, but I wouldn't recommend you to pay because you can do that for free. And if you want to do it for free, you should get something called Nmap. So if you have a friend who has a Linux machine, that would be easy. They could just run command apt install Nmap, and then you will have this app installed. So you could do scanning. If you have a friend who has Mac, or you have Mac as well, you can do install from command line like this, or you can go to nmap.org and install it manually as an installation file. So you'll have Nmap available. Once you have installed that, you can go to terminal and run a few commands. Like the commands I would recommend is really nmap script vuln and then your public IP address. So what it's gonna do is gonna go and scan most popular ports people might have, is like port 22 is SSH and things like that, and 8080s and all those ports. So it's going to go through all those ports and scan if any of those ports are open, and also if the ports are open, it's going to also execute some scripts and check if there's any publicly known security issues with that thing, and it's going to let you know what to do about it. If you want to scan some particular ports, you'll do command like this, where you put port number before your public IP. So it's going to scan only for that port if it's open, and if it's open, what's the what security issues could there be? Or there's a simple port check, a command nmap st and your public IP. But I would really recommend only this command. So if you go to terminal, or if you're using your Linux, you can do that in your Linux, then you'll be typing it, this script bound and your public IP. Or not only public IPs, you can scan also your internal IP, but I'm going to talk about that later. So once you scan your external, that means whoever is behind the defenses, the first defense, your internet provider, your router, you can see any holes there. So you'll see like port number, is it open, if it's not open, and what security issue you could have. Once you have scanned your router, your access from outside world, all those ports, you can also scan your inside devices like NASes. So this is what we're going to talk about later, because once the hackers have gone into your home network, they will see your NAS there and they'll try to attack it. So then you can see what ports are open actually on your NAS, because if you have ports like SSH 22 ports open, they can actually try to attack that in that way. So you'll need to build up some defenses. So that's about scanning your ports. That would be the first thing you should do. So make sure your router doesn't have any holes. So the thing what you can do to actually protect your router is creating a VPN. Not all routers will allow you that. You'll need something more complicated. You could get a Synology router, you could get a Netgear router that allows creating a VPN connection. That would mean that this public IP, what you're seeing, is not anymore as public, because you'll have your VPN IP actually what you'll connect through. So it's like a proxy. So that would be one way of doing that. Enabling firewall. So that would mean that only certain IPs are allowed inside your network. That would be a good way of doing that. Or if you have something advanced, like advanced routers like maybe Synology, or if you have pfSense or Ubiquiti Unify things, you can say that you can set it up in a way that only from UK or only from America or only from that particular city people can connect to your home network and effectively to your NAS eventually. So that's why it's very useful to create firewalls. What you will need to do, disable pingbacks. That means that by default your router will always be replying to pings, so hackers will be because it's easy, it's very predictable to see everyone's IP. So what hackers do is they just run scripts on their zombie computers or whatever the computers. They just send signal out to every single IP address, and then they see which IP replies, which computer replies, which network replies, which router replies. And then if they get a reply, they can start doing this port scan with what ports are opened, and then if there are any ports open, they will check what insecurities there are behind each of those ports, and then they just graduate step by step further. So if they are not receiving initial ping back, it means that their systems will think that this IP is not online, is not available. So they'll stop an attack unless it's really targeted and they don't like you, and then they'll still try to hack in different ways. They'll know that you're trying to hide that you're online and available. Definitely, disable port forwarding. So if you run this open port check, you will see that what ports you have open, and you open those ports using port forwarding. So you probably will disable all of those things, because it's much safer to connect through the VPN or through the proxy. So if you use QNAP, Cloud ID, or Synology Quick Connect, because then it goes through their server, and then only this one IP, only their server can connect to your home network and your NAS, no one else. So this, because when you're traveling, your IP might change and locations might change. But if you use this QNAP or Synology proxy server, that means that you first need to authenticate yourself. You need to get into QNAP Synology Secure NAS and proxy, and then you can bounce down to your NAS or your home network. So this is a much safer way of connecting instead of opening ports, because opening ports means direct. You get better speeds, you can transfer files quicker, connect quicker, but it comes with insecurities. If you don't know how to configure your NAS or your router, you shouldn't be connecting directly through the port forwarding. Another thing what you will need to do is on your router is disable remote management. Sometimes it's very often is enabled. When you disable also management, the other thing you should do is make sure you have latest Wi-Fi standards like VPA2. You have safe passwords, no guest accounts enabled, and I was mentioning is all separate networks creating. Not all routers will allow you that, but if you get like Synology router or QNAP router, it will allow you to create several Wi-Fi's even in your home network. So you can have separate Wi-Fi for your smart plugs and stuff like that, separate Wi-Fi for your smart speakers and separate and TVs, and separate network for NAS and computers and phones, the important stuff. And the next thing what you can do is get Ubiquiti, Unify or Synology or all these like Netgear routers that has this additional functionality in their router. It's going to cost you maybe £100, maybe less, to have this this functionality available. So I can log in actually into my router and have a look. All routers are going to be different. If you got Virgin, if you got different routers, it might be slightly different. So if you log in, for example, in TalkTalk, you will be able to see all these things what I was mentioning before. What's going on with your port forwarding, what's going on with your admin availability to connect. So let's go to access control. So you got here port forwarding. I can see I have nothing forwarded, no ports are open on this router. Enable UPnP, that's also should be off. There's also allowing apps to create holes in your firewall, in your router, without your permission really in the background. So if you want something more advanced, you could do manual rules. You could add those. So you could say that only from certain external IPs port forwarding is possible. So not entire world. No one from popular hacker countries will try to attack you. So they will need to be more clever. They will need to use some UK or America proxies. So they could pretend to be locals when they are trying to connect to your NAS or your home network. So that's port forwarding. Make sure everything is disabled unless you know what you're doing and you are actually limiting which IPs can get through this hole you are going to be creating using port forwarding. And thanks to Firewall, you could actually as well enable, you could say that, okay, what sort of security levels you want, what IP is allowed to come through this network. And you can set settings like low, medium, high, or you can go for your custom based solution for Firewall, saying what can go through and what can't. And this is what I was mentioning about respond to ping. If you disable this, that means if someone is gonna try to talk to your router from outside the world, they will not get any response. So they'll think like, you're not online, you're not available. So that's a thing. DMZ, that's like demilitarized connection. Also, you should disable that. You shouldn't. That sometimes people use that to have a direct connection to your network device in your network, things like that. So these are the few things I was going through, but you need to make sure you have Firewall, you have disabled ping backs, disabled old port forwarding, and remote management, and you have strong VPA2 networks, and you create separate networks. So as you can see, I couldn't create separate networks with default router I'm getting from ISP. That's why I have Synology router connected to the main router. So then I can do additional rules and additional restrictions. So then we can move on to the last step. Once the hacker is inside your home network, they connected through your guest Wi-Fi maybe, they hacked your password for your Wi-Fi, or you enabled them, you had some virus or something file that allowed them to create a whole report forwarding rule through your router. So now they are inside your home network. So this is the hacker. So he got inside behind. If you don't have a firewall, they got inside. If you do have firewall and you had the hole in there, they are inside your home network. So this is what I was talking. If you would have separate networks for each of these categories, then if this hacker was gone inside because you had some dodgy smart plugs or smart light bulbs, that would be the entry point. If you don't have separate networks, they could just talk to all of these devices, your computers, your phones, your smart speakers, your NAS. But if you have separate network, then even though if they broke into your home network, they can't see other devices. They can do something with other smart plugs, other light bulbs and things like that on your fridge and stuff like that, but they will not be able to talk to your NAS. But it's going to be slightly different if they hacked your computer, if you installed some dodgy software. So now they are inside this network where your NAS is actually located, because in that point you need some sort of defense before your NAS and your network. So even though they're inside the same network, they can't get through to your NAS. So the things you can do to secure your NAS, I've got a list here, is like do internal security scan, what I was mentioning here in terminal I was running here. So in my case, when I scanned Synology, it was saying that certain ports are open, like 8080, and it's vulnerable for DDoS, and other one is secure as well, TCP connection vulnerable for DDoS, but nothing really dodgy. But you need to make sure that not always they'll try to get through those ports. They'll try something simple. Once they're inside your home network, there are so many easier things to do. So they could just guess your passwords and things like that. So do internal security scan as well. When you go into your NAS, queue up Synology, go to your security advisor. You can run a test and make sure that everything is safe. Let's type in the password and see. So if you go to control panel and go to security, so in this security section there are a few things you need to make sure they're enabled to keep your NAS safe, because if the hacker is knocking on your NAS and they're like looking for insecurities, then they'll be trying passwords, they'll be trying usernames, they'll be doing all these things. So what you need to do is make sure that you have two-step authentication, which means that it's not enough as username and password. You also need a phone or something to verify that that's you. That's another layer of keeping your account safe. You can enable account protection. So if there are a certain number of login attempts and they failed, you will this user account will be disabled for some time. So that will slow people down if they're trying to guess the passwords. And firewall as well, you can enable private firewall. You can edit the rules, you can create custom rules and say that only this particular computer can connect to the Synology. No other devices in the entire network can connect, or certain ports are open for, or certain protocols are open only for this particular computer. So you could say, like, if you want to manage this NAS, do any admin related things, you need to be connecting from this particular PC. Other computers and devices can access some multimedia and things like that, but management will not be allowed. That's what you can do that in the firewall. Then also protection, that's firewall. You can get also notifications if someone is trying. Protection is enable auto block. So again, if someone is trying to log in your NAS, not only NAS itself, but also through like SSH and other things, through those ports, then this can block that user or IP. And there's also something called DDoS attack. When someone is in denial of service, if they're just bombarding your NAS with to try to put it down on the knees, then you can make sure that there's a protection against that. No one can do this DDoS attack. Or if you search for security advisor, you will be able to run a scan. So it's going to go and scan through all of the potential ways of a hacker to be able to get in your NAS. So it could be involving malware, system things, accounts, insecure usernames and passwords, network configurations, or updates. Because these are the ways hackers will try to hack in. So malware, if you have dodgy files downloaded on your system, on your NAS, so they will have a direct access. They'll be able to get into your network using this window in the shape of this app or file you got there downloaded. The system, let's have a look, what does it say? It's system configuration, no cryptocurrency mining, no optware was found, and malicious startup scripts and blocks in them. So it's going to go through all these things to make sure that you don't have any anything dodgy that hackers could use against you. And then there's accounts. Make sure you don't have any admin account available. There's nothing wrong to have an admin account. It's just what hackers will do is, this is usually the first combination they'll try is admin as a username and admin as a password. So if you have this by default enabled, you haven't changed that when you bought your NAS, it's going to be very easy for them to hack in. So if you would change this admin username to anything else, Harry Potter, this is the last thing they'll be guessing. So you're just slowing hackers down, because they'll need to go through the dictionary, every single possible username they could think of. They'll need to use username and then every single possible combination of the password they could think of. So this could really slow them down, because first they need to guess what the hell the username could be, and that could be really something difficult. So it would take them ages to get into your system. Eventually they'll get that, but it's definitely going to slow them down. And then passwords, obviously, you need to make sure the password is really strong. And not only password, you'll also add things like blocks and stuff like that. What else? They're checking network configurations. So SSH port, very popular, because SSH port, if that is open, it means you give opportunity for hackers to connect to back end of your entire NAS, because it's built on Linux. So they could log into back end and do whatever they want. They get full control of things. They don't even need to. With SSH enabled, they don't even care about anymore your username, passwords and stuff like that, because once they're in the backend, they can see everyone, all users there, all files there and everything. So you need to be really careful with that. SSH should be always disabled. You can enable it only when you actually need to do something with it. So you enable it for 1 hour, and once you have done with things you have to do, you disable it again. It's similar with Telnet, the same thing. And updates. Make sure that you always have automated app updates. You also have automated firmware and operating system updates as well. So if there is the zero-day attack, when someone has discovered a hole in software, they will not be able, you will shorten the window, because once the patch is created and uploaded, you will have this automatically installed. So for example, if you're on holiday for 2 weeks and there is this security issue on day 1, and they create a patch on day 2, this will automatically be installed, and hackers will be stopped from getting into your system, instead of waiting for 2 weeks when you come back from holiday and you figure out that all your data is lost or encrypted. So those are the things. So with internal scan, you make sure that you scan regularly your NAS, you have your antivirus, you have your security advisor installed, so you can do these checks. It's going to do automatic checks and it's going to alert you as well if something is wrong. Disable services and change ports. So if you were doing this port check on the terminal for internal NAS system, and you could see that, or you have certain ports open, like 22, just close it. Or if you're not a running browser, just close those, like internet websites or something, close those ports. You don't need them unless you actually use them, because every open hole is an opportunity, different way of hacking into a system. Less ports are open, less opportunities for them to hack into. So that's disabling all the apps you're not using and disabling ports with it as well. Admin I was mentioning as well, either disable admin or change admin to something else, something that's difficult to guess, same with passwords. Enable firewall as well. Enable firewall, that would be a different kind of enable. That would be allowing only certain IPs, again, certain computers to connect to your NAS. So even on the local level, if someone broke into your this network, in this segment, they could not get into your NAS unless your local IP is a certain, has a certain number. So if you've got like 5 computers and they got into your this subnet network through one of those computers, the NAS will not let them in, because, for example, only this phone is allowed into a NAS. So creating firewalls would help you to protect your NAS further, so they wouldn't be allowed, no one would be allowed to get into your NAS, even if they have broken into your home and they're knocking on your NAS. So make sure you also update apps and firmware, and always backup, because once they got through your NAS, that's it. There's nothing else you could have done. You can protect, you can try to do everything what's in your power, but it's never going to be 100% sure that you have done everything to protect your NAS. They will eventually get through. It's just a matter of time. So have backups. Not because of hackers as well. There are other disasters like fire, flood, and burglars breaking into your house and physically grabbing your NAS and running away. So having a backup will help. We can have external USB backups. You can have a friend who has also NAS, and you can automate these backups. They are sharing a certain amount of storage space on their side. In exchange, you do the same, so you can back up your NAS to each other's location. This was a video about securities, how to secure your home network, make sure that there are not any holes in your router, and if there is, then how to add additional protection, sort of layers, walls behind your NAS, so they wouldn't hack in. So if you have any questions, you can always put that in the comments or send email to info@nascompares, and if the question will be interesting, we can record a video like this so we can help you and we can help others as well. Cheerio.